I'm only in touch with a couple of my friends from the high school. Two of my best friends that I'm still friends with.
That's all you need.
Back then, my two friend Jimmies. Those were guys I went to high school with. The Jimmies, yeah. But they went to North. I went to high school in Newton South, so we were like in the same town, but we didn't go to the same school. So I'm only friends with one dude who was from my art class, who was like the best artist in the art class. This guy John DeVore, and he and I we communicate on email sometimes. But he was like the guy when we were kids. It was like this amazing comic book illustrator.
How's he doing now? Was he a comic book illustrator?
No, he runs a speaker company.
Interesting.
He actually
world.
stopped doing art for the same reason that I did, because the teacher that we had in high school was such a douchebag. He made you not want to do art.
Interesting. What did he do?
He was just miserable.
He was like, you can try this, but it's a waste of time.
So this guy, John, my friend from high school, told me that teacher gave him an F. And I just told you he was the most talented guy in the class, by far.
Yeah.
I was number 3. There was this dude named Kevin. He was number 2, and I was number 3. But we both did it. All 3 of us did a comic book together.
Cool.
Yeah, like some martial arts dragon thing. I forget what it's called. But we
when you're young, it's so funny because you're like, we're gonna take over the world with this comic book stuff. Yeah,
and we would hang out and do art together. But the teacher was such a twat. He was such a twat. He was like this
ruined it for you.
Miserable older guy with I remember his pot belly, like he was pregnant. But he was a tiny man. It was like, he was very thin, but with a pot belly.
Yeah.
And he was just saying, you're not going to be able to do what you want to do with your life. If you're going to be an artist, you're going to have to draw things you don't want to draw. There's no way.
Like me, nude after class if you want an A. Not everyone gets what they want.
Bro, he doesn't want to fuck anybody. He didn't want to fuck anybody. Yeah. He just wanted to go to sleep. That guy was just
hated his life.
He was miserable, and he was just really bad to be around. Because you were young and full of energy, and you just wanted to like do something with your life, and this was a thing that you were doing that you were kind of getting good at.
Of course,
and you're like, maybe I could be an artist. I love comic books. Maybe I could draw comic books.
The art teacher says no.
Such a cunt. He was such a cunt. You're like, oh my god, I got to get away from you. So negative.
It's kind of a weird thing with art because, it is true when someone says, hey, this isn't a good idea.
Yeah.
Like, they're right statistically. So there is something to be said about, like, I feel like you actually need most people being like, listen, this is probably a bad idea to try to be a comedian. Like,
yes.
that is the actual responsible. So when parents, they're like, that's okay, that's not a good idea. They're right. But you only need one person that's like, you can though. Like, you need one guy in your corner. You can't have every person says no, because then it's too, you're too afraid. But I think that a lot of times there's this weird, like, sometimes people say you need too much support. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if everyone's like, you could do this, like,
that's
because the people that are going to make it, you are going to break through a level of adversity usually, The people who are going to make it work, they don't care that people are saying no. But if everyone's saying no, I feel like that's what, like, ruins some people that could have been great. Does that make sense?
Everyone's saying no, so like their family's saying no.
Yeah, like imagine your dad's like, listen, go to school. This probably isn't a good idea. Your mom's saying that. Maybe your teacher's saying that. But then you had one teacher that's like, no, you got something here. Like, give one encouraging person for a guy. Like, I think a lot of young dudes don't have like one encouraging person.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, I think also, whatever the fuck you're trying to do, whether you're trying to do stand-up comedy or anything else, it's gonna be a long-ass road. And you can't hope you get successful really quickly. And the problem with comedy as opposed to everything else is that people think they have like a giant head start. Like, a lot of people have the courage to do it are a little delusional about,
and you need a little bit of that.
Yeah, you need a little bit of that. But those people, like, when it's a fine line.
That's what I mean.
We really don't know until it works. Like, so many different people succeed in stand-up comedy that you wouldn't have thought would have if you didn't know any better, or if you didn't see them in like the first year of their career when they sucked.
Yeah.
If you only saw them like 7-8 years later, you would probably never imagine how bad they sucked 8 years ago. There's certain guys like that.
Yeah. Or how, like, much of a dick they were or something. But
it's all about constant improvement and constantly working at it. And some people just don't do that, man. The thing about comedy is nobody tells you to do it. Like, if you're a comic, you can kind of fuck off.
Especially, you know, if you've, like, there is if you're like in New York and you kind of are making a living, maybe have a podcast, you can really just like do the bare minimum.
Yeah. But you just do a few sets here and there and do the same 15 minutes.
But whenever you see those people, like I always kind of, you know, like a little bit binary with people, I'm always like, would you bet on that guy? Like when you see someone 2-3 years in, I don't say,
right,
I never
bet on them.
That's what I say. I go, I don't say like, what should they do better? What should they do worse? Like, you know, what moves should they make? Should this guy be this? Should he be that? I just go, would you bet on that guy? And if yes, he'll figure the rest out.
Yeah.
That's what I usually think.
Yeah.
And there's a few people I can think like that where I'm like, I would bet on. And then there's public people you'll see someone come on the scene and you go, that guy's going to be huge. Like you can just tell.
Oh,
you know?
yeah. There's certain guys that there's certain people that just have a thing. And you're like, wow, you got a thing. Like, look at that thing. Yeah.
When you see a new guy, you go, who's this guy?
Yeah. And then there's other people that just keep getting a little better. Just keep getting a little better. And then you see him a year later, you're like, nice, man. Like how you tighten that up.
Compounds.
Keep getting better. Like the first time I saw Tim Dillon, he was very funny. It was very funny. But the second time I saw him was a long time later. Second time I saw him live was a long time later. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I go, dude, that was amazing. It was
Something
amazing.
clicks, right?
Yeah, he was just doing the road a lot. He said he was just constantly doing the road. So he's like doing all these headliner spots. He's doing so much time. He's like, everything just tightened up and, you know.
Especially when you're doing there's different personalities are easier to do when you're starting. You know, like let's say you're like a big, fun, fat guy. Like,
yeah,
that personality, you know, 6 months in can kind of connect, you know?
Right.
But if you're being like an asshole, like there's so many people where you're like, yo, that's really funny, but not enough funny for how much of you're being an asshole.
Right. You're not likable at all.
I'm that. Like it took me forever to figure out that right like balance of like telling the audience I'm better than them, but also like, I don't know. It takes, there's
also a defensive thing too, right? Because like if you think you're going to bomb, a little bit of you is like, fuck these people. You know, because like you don't want to admit that you're not doing it right yet. You want to believe that it's them.
Camping me. The audience has no data whatsoever. You know what? This is what I was kind of thinking of, what I kind of feel like the audience sometimes, because there is comics that almost treat it like a job, especially in cities. I'm sure in LA you saw a lot of this. Boston, you probably saw a ton of this. The guys that, it's a very like a job for them where they go, hey, you know, oh yeah, the 10 o'clock's pretty good. The 11 o'clock, you know, a little bit of a loud table at the back. The sex stuff doesn't go. You probably want to keep it to the relationship material for the table. And like, it's very, you know, like we want the audience to have a good time. That's the job, right?